My name is Grace Johnson, and for 3 years, I cleaned the floors of one of the biggest companies in the city. Every morning before the sun rose, I arrived at the 20-story building, wearing the same faded blue cleaner's uniform. Most people never looked at me. Some acted as if I didn't exist. Others made sure I knew exactly where I belonged. What none of them knew was that I owned every single share of the company, and I wasn't going to let them know my real identity that fast. And the day they discovered the truth changed their lives forever. But before I tell you what happened, let me start from the beginning. The company was called Horizon Group. It was worth hundreds of millions. Its headquarters stood proudly in Victoria Island. Employees fought desperately to work there because the salaries were high and the benefits were excellent. The company's CEO was a man named Richard Benson. At least that was what everyone believed. Every morning, Richard entered through the front doors while workers greeted him respectfully. "Good morning, sir. Good morning, Mr. Benson." He would smile and wave proudly. Everyone carried out his orders. Nobody questioned his authority. Nobody knew he was hiding a dangerous secret. Meanwhile, I quietly pushed my cleaning cart through the hallways and I focused on my work. Most employees ignored me, but a few went out of their way to humiliate me. The worst among them was Sandra. Sandra worked as a senior manager. She was beautiful, fashionable, and extremely arrogant. One morning, I accidentally brushed against her chair while cleaning. Sandra immediately stood up. "Watch where you're going." "I'm sorry," I said softly. She looked at my uniform and laughed. "People like you should be invisible." The other workers laughed. I simply smiled and continued working. I acted like their words and actions meant nothing. Inside my heart, however, I remembered every word. Not because I wanted revenge, because words reveal character, and character always determines destiny. That afternoon, Sandra entered the cafeteria with several colleagues. The cleaners usually sat in a separate corner. As I ate quietly, Sandra approached my table. "Why are you sitting here?" I looked up. "Because I'm eating lunch?" Her friends laughed. "You should eat outside." "This area is for professionals." I smiled. "Food tastes the same everywhere." The laughter stopped. Sandra frowned. She hated calm people, especially those she couldn't control. "You think you're clever?" she snapped. "No," I replied. "I just think everyone deserves respect." The entire cafeteria became silent. For a moment, Sandra looked embarrassed. Then she rolled her eyes and walked away. From that day, she disliked me even more. There was another employee named David. Unlike Sandra, David was kind. He worked in the finance department. Every morning he greeted me warmly. "Good morning, Mama Grace." "Good morning, my son." One day he noticed Sandra insulting me. After she left, he shook his head. "I don't understand why some people treat others badly." I smiled. "Power reveals who people truly are." David nodded. "Sometimes I wonder if God is watching." I looked directly into his eyes. "He always is." David would later discover how true those words were. Unknown to everyone in the building, my life had not always been simple. 30 years earlier, my late husband, Samuel Johnson, had founded Horizon Group. Back then, it was a small logistics company operating from a tiny rented office. Samuel worked day and night. We sacrificed everything. Many nights we slept hungry. Many times we almost gave up, but we believed in our dream. Slowly the business grew. Then it expanded. Then it became successful. Years later, it became one of the biggest companies in the city. Before Samuel died, he transferred all ownership shares to me. Grace, he told me from his hospital bed, never let money change your heart. Tears filled my eyes. I won't. He squeezed my hand. One day, test the people around you. Learn who truly deserves leadership. Those were his final words. After his death, I appointed professional executives to run the company. Among them was Richard Benson. At first, Richard appeared honest, but over time, things changed. Profits began disappearing, expenses increased. Something felt wrong. When I asked questions, Richard always had answers. Too many answers. That made me suspicious. So I created a plan. I disguised myself as an ordinary cleaner and joined my own company. Nobody knew who I was, not even Richard. For 3 years, I watched. I listened. I learned. And what I discovered shocked me. One evening, after most employees had gone home, I was cleaning outside Richard's office. His door was slightly open. Inside, Richard was speaking on the phone. Transfer the money tomorrow. My attention sharpened. No one will notice. He laughed. The old woman doesn't know anything? My heart froze. The old woman. That was me. Richard believed I was weak. He believed I was unaware. He continued speaking. After the acquisition is complete, we'll move another 200 million. I quietly recorded the conversation on my phone. For the first time, I had evidence. But the real shock came later. The next week, I visited the company archives. What I found almost made me collapse. Dear amazing viewers, what do you think Grace discovered that shocked her? Keep watching to see the shocking twist. Before I continue, I would like to ask you to like this video and kindly subscribe to my channel if you haven't subscribed yet, and turn on the notification bell to get notified when I publish new videos. Much appreciation. And if you are a returning subscriber, welcome back and thank you so much. Now back to the story. Richard wasn't merely stealing. He was secretly trying to take ownership of Horizon Group using fake documents, fake signatures, fake board approvals. For years, he had been building a trap. If successful, he would eventually remove me completely. The company my husband built would become his. I immediately contacted a trusted lawyer named Michael Aid. After reviewing the documents, Michael looked horrified. This is criminal. It gets worse, I replied. He frowned. Worse? I nodded. Keep investigating. 2 weeks later, Michael called me. His voice sounded serious. Grace, you need to sit down. What happened? We discovered someone inside the board is helping Richard. My heart sank. A board member. Yes. Who? Michael hesitated. Then he spoke. The person is your nephew, Victor. I closed my eyes. Victor, the boy I had paid through university. The young man I treated like my own son. He had betrayed me. That night I cried, not because of the money, because betrayal hurts more when it comes from family. The next morning, I still arrived at work wearing my cleaner's uniform. Sandra immediately found another reason to insult me. Why are you smiling today? I looked at her. Because life is beautiful. She laughed. Not for cleaners. I smiled. You'd be surprised. Days passed. The investigation continued. Then another shocking discovery emerged. David from finance secretly approached me one evening. Mama Grace, can I tell you something? Of course. He lowered his voice. I think someone is stealing from the company. I pretended to be surprised. Really? He nodded. I found suspicious transactions. Did you report them? Yes. What happened? Richard threatened to fire me. My respect for David grew immediately. Most people stay silent when their jobs are at risk. David chose honesty. That decision would change his life forever. A month later, Horizon Group announced a grand company celebration. Richard claimed the event would celebrate record profits. Hundreds of employees attended, board members arrived, investors arrived, business partners arrived. The ballroom overflowed with important people. Richard stood proudly on stage. He smiled confidently. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome. The audience applauded. He began describing the company's success. Everyone admired him. Everyone believed him, except me. I sat quietly at the back of the room wearing my cleaner's uniform. Sandra noticed me. She walked over angrily. What are you doing here? I was invited, she laughed. No cleaner was invited. Several guests stared. Embarrassed, Sandra grabbed my arm. Leave immediately. Before I could answer, a voice echoed through the hall. Take your hands off her. Everyone turned. A group of lawyers entered. Behind them came Michael Aid. The entire room fell silent. Richard's smile disappeared. Michael walked directly toward me. Then something happened that nobody expected. He bowed respectfully. Good evening, Madam Chairwoman. The room exploded with confusion. What did he say? Chairwoman? Who? Sandra released my arm instantly. Her face turned pale. Michael repeated himself. Good evening, Madam Chairwoman. Then he handed me a folder. I slowly stood. The entire ballroom watched. Richard looked terrified. For the first time in 3 years, I removed my cleaner's cap. Then I walked toward the stage. The room remained completely silent. I took the microphone. My name is Grace Johnson. Nobody moved. I am the founder's wife. Gasps filled the hall. I am also the sole owner of Horizon Group. Several people nearly fell from their chairs. Sandra's mouth opened. No words came out. Richard looked as though he had seen a ghost. I spent 3 years inside this company as a cleaner. The audience stared in disbelief. I wanted to understand how employees treated people who seemed powerless. Silence. Then I looked directly at Sandra. She immediately lowered her eyes. I turned toward Richard, and I wanted to discover who was stealing from me. Richard began sweating. Madam Grace, I can explain. No, my voice echoed across the room. You've explained enough. The giant screen behind me suddenly lit up. Michael displayed financial records, bank transfers, fake approvals, secret accounts, everything. The audience gasped repeatedly. Richard's face became white. Then came the recorded phone conversation. His own voice filled the hall. Every lie, every theft, every conspiracy. The evidence was overwhelming. Suddenly, Richard pointed toward Victor. He helped me. The room gasped. Victor stood up angrily. You're blaming me? Richard laughed bitterly. We're both finished. Victor's face collapsed. The truth was out. Security officers stepped forward. Both men were escorted away. The audience watched in shock, but the biggest surprise had not yet arrived. I looked toward David. Please come forward. Confused, David approached the stage. He seemed nervous. I smiled. While many people failed my test, one person passed. The audience listened carefully. David chose honesty even when it endangered his career. Tears appeared in David's eyes. I continued, "Integrity is rare." The crowd applauded. Then I made an announcement nobody expected. Effective immediately, David will become the company's new managing director. The ballroom erupted. David stood frozen. "What?" I smiled. "Congratulations." Tears rolled down his cheeks. "Thank you, Madam Grace." Then I turned toward the audience, especially Sandra. She looked as if she wanted the ground to swallow her. "Come forward." Her legs trembled. Slowly she approached. Tears filled her eyes. "I'm sorry." I remained silent. She continued crying. "I judged you. I mocked you. I treated you badly. I thought your uniform defined your value." The room watched. I nodded gently. "What have you learned?" She wiped her tears. "That every person deserves respect." I smiled. "Good." Then I shocked everyone again. "I forgive you." Sandra burst into tears. The entire hall applauded. Months later, Horizon Group changed completely. New policies ensured every employee received equal respect. Security guards, receptionists, drivers, cleaners, managers, everyone mattered. David transformed the company culture. Employees became happier. Profits increased. Trust returned. As for Sandra, she changed too. She began mentoring junior workers. She apologized personally to every cleaner. People hardly recognized her. Sometimes the greatest transformation begins with humiliation. One morning, 6 months later, I entered the building again. Not as a cleaner, as the owner. Employees greeted me warmly, but something beautiful happened. Before entering the elevator, I noticed a new cleaner struggling with a heavy cart. Immediately, Sandra rushed over to help. The young cleaner smiled gratefully. I smiled too. That was the moment I knew the company had truly changed. Not because profits increased, not because thieves were removed, but because people had learned to see human beings instead of job titles. And that lesson was worth more than all the money in the world. Life lessons. True character is revealed by how you treat people who seem powerless, because every person deserves respect regardless of their position or appearance. Honesty and integrity may not bring immediate rewards, but in the end, the truth always prevails, while greed and arrogance lead to downfall. Before you watch the next video, kindly subscribe to my channel if you haven't subscribed yet. Please click on the subscribe button and like this video. Be a part of my channel's growth by clicking on the next video on the screen and drop a comment to let me know what you think about the story. Thank you for watching. Much appreciation.